right, everyone, let's get started. My name is Henry Willis, and I'm ABPsi Student Circle's Communications Chair. And I would like to welcome everybody to part one of our webinar series, Managing Your Money in Graduate School, Financial Literacy 101. So before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to make everyone aware that there are two ways to send questions. You can use the chat feature on the right side of your screen to submit questions, or you can also email your questions directly to me at scommunications@abpsi.org. We will answer questions at the last 20 minutes of the webinar. And so now I'd like to introduce Kimberly Patterson, a licensed professional counselor in Texas, a national board certified counselor and advocate of social change. She received her bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a master's of science degree in forensic psychology, and a master of arts in counseling from Prairie View A&M University. She is currently working on a PhD in counselor education and supervision with a concentration in social change and mental health public policies at Walden University. Her goal is to launch her private practice called Impact Counseling and Wellness Education Services once her dissertation is complete. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ms. Kimberly Patterson.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Henry. I want to welcome everybody to this webinar series, Managing Your Financial Funding for Graduate School. As Henry said, I am a graduate student and have been in school, so I know a lot of different types of ways to get funding and obtain funding, to keep funding and repay back funding. So I'm going to detail some information that will help you regarding funding your graduate school studies. The objectives and goals of this webinar include planning for graduate school funding, understanding grants, scholarships, and loans, and also the difference in your loans, understanding default, forbearance, and deferment, and also how to manage your money. I'm going to be talking about budgeting, credit care, and also how to prepare for graduate school. At the end, there'll be times for questions. So if you have any questions, just keep them till the end, and I'll put up a slide that you can ask that I'll be answering questions. Okay, to begin, I'll go ahead and start with grants. Now, grant funding, of course, is a fund that you do not have to pay back. Now, if you went to undergrad, some of y'all are familiar with the Pell Grant or something that is called SEOG, the Federal Supplemental Education Grant. Now, these grants are not awarded to graduate students. However, graduate students do have the opportunity to get other types of grants, such as state, federal, and institutional grants. Now, state grants are awarded to students that have applied through the FAFSA. That's the free application for student aid application online. The state grants are awarded to students that are eligible need-based students. Once you complete the FAFSA, your financial aid department will let you know your eligibility of state grants. Now, some students may also be eligible for federal fellowships. Now, some of these fellowships you can obtain through different organizations, such as if you're part of American Counseling Association or American Psychological Association. On their websites, those are also known as ACA and APA, or whatever your field of study is. If you're part of any organizations, I recommend that you go to their actual website and see if they offer fellowship grant proposals through their organization. What you'll have to do is apply. Normally they ask you for a resume and an essay. So it's really important that you always have an example of your resume or vita on file, and also a essay on file just in case you want to apply for some of those federal grants. Now, institutional grants, it depends on the institution that you're attending, HBCU, public, private. What you can do is inquire with your financial aid department what institutional grants are available for you. Sometimes they have field-specific grants that are awarded to students, whether you're a business major, or any type of scientific major, field-specific grants that can be awarded to you. These institutional grants can sometimes be called stipends or assistantships. Now, a stipend is given to a student. Of course, you would have to apply. And a stipend is given to a student and paid towards their tuition. Sometimes it does not pay for exactly their fees. So it's also important to make sure you know exactly what your stipend is paying for. Now, if it doesn't pay for your fees, you can sometimes get something what's called an assistantship, a graduate assistantship. These are real helpful because what they allow you to do is actually work in your graduate department or on campus and get paid, and that funding can go towards your tuition and fees. So you have various different grants that can be awarded to you, and keep in mind that this is funding that you do not have to pay back. So assistantships are really beneficial because they allow you to actually work in your field and prepare you for the job that you're actually going to school for.
Hey, Kimberly, I don't think I able to see your slides right.
Okay, hold on. Okay, can you see it now?
Perfect.
Okay. Now, this is the slide that I was just detailing with the state grants, federal grants, and institutional grants. Now that you can see the slide, go ahead and look over the different examples that you have. And I'm gonna go ahead and on to the next one because the next one is the most important. In order to even receive any type of grants that I was speaking of, you have to make sure you maintain good grades. Most grants or grant proposals that you apply for, they're going to ask you, what is your GPA? Most require that you have 3.0 and higher. Some even ask for 3.5 and higher. If you are applying for federal funds, there's standards that you must meet in order to receive federal funding, grants, loans, or federal scholarships. In order to receive funding as a graduate student, 3.0 is the standard GPA that's required for federal funding, most assistantships and scholarships and institutional grants. So keep in mind, keep in mind while you're in school, your GPA is most important. Now, as far as federal funding, you have to also keep in mind the classes that you're taking, you cannot drop or fail. Now, this is because you're also calculated regarding your completion rate. FAFSA standards require you to meet 67% of your completed attempted hours, meaning if you take 6 hours, but you only pass 3, you'll be in jeopardy of getting funding that next semester because you've only met 50% of your completion rate. So keep in mind, I know some circumstances happen during the semester, but if you are required to drop, or if you see that you're failing at midterm, make sure that you speak to your financial aid office and counselor to see if that's going to jeopardize your scholarship, grants, or assistantship funding for the next semester. In addition, you have to keep in mind your attempted hours. Some students get in school and they're just taking hours, and they don't do what's called a degree audit. Each semester, it's really important when you start getting close to your graduation time, or if you've attempted more than over 30 hours, it's really important that you do what's called a degree audit at each school. They should have that within your department. A degree audit lets you know how many hours you have taken and how many hours you have until you graduate. If you're on federal funding and you exceed over 154 graduate hours, you could be in jeopardy by FAFSA standards of not being able to get your federal funding. So you might want to keep that in mind. Now, of course, like I said, there's sometimes circumstances that occur. So there are exceptions that can put you in warning status depending on your financial aid office, and your financial aid counselor can let you know what your probation, warning, and suspension policies are. Those should also be on your school's website, so make sure that you do that research. Stay on your school's financial aid website because the policies do change sometimes by the year. Okay, I've spoken about grants and of course your grades. Now, to the information about free aid, let's go ahead and speak about scholarships. Everybody loves scholarships. It's really important for you to go out there and get scholarships for yourself. Sometimes scholarships are easily handed and awarded to you. Sometimes you have to go out there and you do your research and you network. Now, as far as scholarships, the easiest way to find a scholarship is, of course, inquire with your financial aid office and look on your financial aid website. If you don't apply for scholarships, of course, you won't be able to get them. So a lot of people say, well, you know, how do you get free aid? How do you get free aid? You have to have those essays, those application recommendations from your teachers, from your colleagues, already ready. So when a scholarship application comes out, you can go ahead and put the package together and apply. So it's really important that you have a copy of at least 3 letters of recommendation on file without a date on it, and also a copy of your vita or your resume. So if scholarship opportunities do occur, you can quickly apply for them before the deadline. Each scholarship has different deadlines. Now, you also have different type of scholarships that you can apply for. Merit-based scholarships, of course, are based on your GPA. That's why I said it's really important for you to maintain a good GPA. I said the standard is 3.0, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you a 3.3 and up would be ideal. Merit-based scholarships, of course, are given through your department, your field of major. You can also find merit-based scholarships through the online website engine search for different type of scholarships. They have minority scholarships. They have scholarships for the LGBT community. They have scholarships if you're Black, if you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're right-handed, if you live in Texas, if you live in New York. They have all different type of scholarships that you can apply for. So it's really important that you're out there and being diligent and looking for those scholarships. Now, it's really important that you're careful and you make sure that the scholarship that you're applying for is legit. By any means, never pay to apply for a scholarship. If they're asking you for $20 for the application, or if they're asking you for personal information like your social security number, then I would that's a little sketchy to me, and I would not apply for those scholarships. Or I would ask if there's other recipients that actually got that scholarship and if it was legit. Other scholarships are department scholarships that you can receive through your institution. You can go to your advisors or your deans of college and ask them within the department, are there counseling scholarships? Are there business scholarships? Are there specific scholarships that are for social change or psychology? There's major scholarships that you can apply for. Of course, those are still going to need those letter of recommendation, essays, and resumes. So make sure you have those 3 things on file on a dump drive or on a disk at all times. As a graduate, really important. 3 letter of recommendations, a resume, and an essay on file. Now, also, the institutional scholarships, those are based on offer. Some students are automatically offered a scholarship because of their GPA or because of an award that they're receiving through the school. That can be based off a pageant or based off of a special project that you've done for the school. It can also be based off of your GPA. So some institutions offer scholarships without you even having to apply for them. Third-party scholarships are based on outside private offers. Those are organizational-based scholarships that you can receive maybe from the Black Psychologists website, or you can receive a American Counseling Association scholarship. I advise you to go onto the American Psychological website and see what scholarships that you can apply for. That's why, as a graduate student, it's really important for you to join professional organizations so that you can get and reap those opportunities for grants and scholarships that they offer. Now, many of you, since we're graduate students, many of you received federal funding through the FAFSA as an undergrad student. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the FAFSA and the new updates on the FAFSA application. Now, the FAFSA application is the free application for federal student aid. That's what the FAFSA stands for. You can obtain the FAFSA application through www.fafsa.gov. If you plan on getting funding, now listen to what I'm saying. If you plan on getting funding for the spring semester, spring 2017, or any of the year 2017, 2018, you need to complete the FAFSA today or within the next week or as soon as possible. The FAFSA for next year opened October the 2nd, 2016. That's new. That's a new updated date. Normally, if you're in undergrad, you know it did not open, or the application wasn't open for applying for until January. However, this year it opened up October the 2nd. To complete the FAFSA application, you will need, of course, your FAFSA PIN. To obtain the PIN, if you don't remember your PIN from undergrad, or if you need to register for a new PIN, make sure you go to the website. The FAFSA website is there in the left-hand corner of the slide, and you can register for a new PIN, or you can retrieve the old PIN if you have lost it or forgot it. With that PIN, it'll allow you to go into the FAFSA and apply for your federal aid. With federal aid, like I said, you can receive federal loans and, of course, federal grants or any type of federal funding to help you. If you do complete the FAFSA, or if you haven't completed the FAFSA in a long time, there are tutorials on YouTube to complete the FAFSA, as well as the FAFSA worksheet that's on the FAFSA website that will guide you through the process and step-by-step show you how to complete your FAFSA. What you'll need to complete the FAFSA is your tax return from this year, which is 2016. Now, what's new about the FAFSA is, since it's offered so early, you can use your last year's tax return 2015 and just renew the FAFSA for 2017, 2018. Now, if you are an individual that normally has their own business or does extensions on your taxes, or you've been a victim of identity theft, make sure that you speak with your school's financial aid department, and they'll give you steps that you'll have to take to submit your FAFSA info or to obtain federal aid, since your circumstance might be different than others. If you do have a spouse, I know since you're graduate students, some of you may be married or have dependents. Make sure that you answer those questions correctly, so that your federal funding won't be delayed and selected for what a process called verification. So make sure that all the information that you put on the FAFSA is true and correct. Once completed, your FAFSA will, of course, upload within your school's financial aid department. You could put up to 10 schools on your FAFSA. So maybe you're interested in going to graduate school a couple of places. That's okay. You fill out one FAFSA for many different schools, and it will upload into their database, and it will produce what's called a student aid report. That student aid report will allow you to see what your FAFSA eligibility is for federal funding, and tell you what you might receive from the from the financial aid department. Loans. I know a lot of people don't like to borrow loans, but sometimes school can be really expensive. Graduate school costs can get up to about $15,000 a year, sometimes more, because you have miscellaneous costs, books, travel that you have to keep in mind as well. Now, if you went to undergrad and you received loans, you might have received something that was called a subsidized loan. That was a loan that did not accumulate interest while you were in school. However, graduate students aren't eligible for subsidized loans in graduate school if you're going to get your master's or your PhD. If you're getting your master's or your PhD, you're eligible for what's called a unsubsidized loan. The unsubsidized loan, you will have to, of course, complete what's called a master promissory note via studentloans.gov. The master promissory note details your terms and conditions for your loans. In addition, you'll have to complete what's called loan entrance counseling. Now, if you're going to the same school that you went to the prior semester, normally you do not have to complete the loan entrance counseling only one time. Now, if you are a parent, because I know, we're graduate students, so some students have students that are children themselves. So if you have children that are actually in college at the same time that you're in school, you might have a Parent Plus out for them, or you might have taken out a loan, what is called a Parent Plus loan, out for your child. That sometimes affects the loans that you receive if you're getting a Graduate Plus loan. That's because the Parent Plus loan and the Graduate Plus loan is based on your credit, and they have to do credit checks. So make sure you keep that in mind. If you're ineligible for an unsubsidized loan, you still can get a Graduate Plus loan But if you have a Parent Plus loan, keep in mind that it might jeopardize your Graduate Plus loan because these two loans are based on credit. Now, as a graduate student, you can get annually, you can get up to $20,500 for the year. Aggregately, you can get up to $138,500. It cannot exceed $204,000 as a medical student, and I'll go to that slide in a couple of minutes. This website, www.studentloans.gov, it helps you understand your terms and conditions of your loan. It details information that you need as a borrower. Make sure that you understand before you start borrowing. I gave you the loan limits up to, which is $20,500 a year, but you do not have to borrow up to that amount. That's just your eligible borrowing amount. You can pull out just what you need. You have the option of just borrowing $5,000 a semester if your school is just $1,200, or you can borrow up to the maximum and you receive what's called an overpayment or a refund, which can be used for your books or travel expenses. Now, be aware of these refunds because remember, these are loans and you'll have to make sure that you pay them back after you graduate. In addition, also keep in mind that you are also accumulating interest, and the interest is at 3.5 right now. It used to be 6.8. This is an example of what the studentloans.gov looks like. It's pretty self-explanatory. The FAFSA application is there, how you can apply for your PIN. Oh, I have this on SlideShare. How you can apply for your PIN is also on here. So make sure that before you apply, you go to the different links and get familiar with the website so that you can be prepared to apply for your student loans and know what type of loans that you're borrowing before you actually borrow the funding. Now, the types of loans that you're borrowing, you have direct loans. Some schools offer Perkins loans. And also they have what was called the FELP program, which ended June 30th, 2010. Now loans are borrowed through the direct loan program. And some schools have the Perkins loan, which is actually a loan that is lended through your school. An additional loan that I do not have here is also a private loan, or what's called an alternative loan. These loans can be applied for through your bank institution, Wells Fargo or Chase. If you want to inquire about a private or alternative loan through your bank institution, you can also see what their interest rates are to fund your graduate school. However, direct loan has the lowest interest rates and is funded through the Department of Education. Here are the different types of loan. Of course, the Parent Plus loan is something that, and the subsidized loan is something that you would use if you were in undergrad or if you have children in undergrad. That's something that you would be familiar with if you were in undergrad. As a graduate student, you would have unsubsidized loans, Perkins loans, Graduate Plus. The Graduate Plus loan is if you've exceeded the $20,500 in the year, you've gotten to the summer and you want to take summer classes, you can apply for a Graduate Plus loan. That's also credit based. So you need to make sure that you maintain a good credit score. And I will discuss how to maintain a good credit score and how to keep up with your credit in a later slide. Also, if you've been out of school for a while, at least for 6 months, your loans might be in deferment, forbearance, default, hopefully not, and you might have consolidated loans. These loans will be put in deferment if you get back in school. So it's really important that you maintain a good relationship with your loan lender and stay on the studentloans.gov so you know when your loans start repayment, or if you need to call and put your loans in forbearance or in school deferment. Now, again, the subsidized loan is something that the graduate students would not be receiving, but the unsub loan is only applied for through the FAFSA application. Keep in mind the interest does begin the day that you start the loan. Again, you will not be able to receive the loan until your entrance counseling and your MPN, which is the master promissory note, is completed through www.studentloans.gov. But keep in mind, you can pay the interest while you're in school, and also that when you do your taxes, you will be credited for, there's something called a 1098-T form that you will receive from your school that allows you to get tax exemptions if you are using, or if you are in school for that year and paying for tuition. The private loan is also a credit check-based loan. Those are the loans that you receive through your bank institution, compared to the federal loans that are not a credit check loan. Those are based on applying through the FAFSA website. To maintain your student loans, you can go to what's called nslds.gov. This allows you to know how much loans you've accrued during your whole time of school. Now, this slide shows you the loan limits. Like I said, a student can get up to 1,385 total, undergrad and graduate. Once you've met that 138.5, then you would have to start going into private loans through your bank institution or through the Graduate Plus loan. Now, if you're a medical student, you can get up to 224,000 loans can be accumulated. Make sure you keep in mind these are unsubsidized loans for graduate students, so the interest will accumulate on these loans if you're not paying while you're in school. The NSLDS website, it lets you know how much loans you've received throughout your whole entire school process. The NSLDS website also allows you to consolidate your loans, maintain any type of deferment, see if you're in default, or request consolidation or forbearance. It's really important that you know who your loan servers are. Us being graduate students, we have a lot of loan servicers. There are servicers like Fed Loan, Nelnet, Department of Education, direct loans. There's so many different loan servicers that you have to make sure that you look on NSLDS. If you want to have multiple servicers servicers, that's okay. Make sure you maintain them. But that's where consolidation comes into play. You can consolidate your loans with one server and just pay one server back. And you can do that through nslds.gov, ed.gov. It's really important that you call in, you do your research, and I would stay on there at least every 6 months so that you know where your interest is, how your interest is occurring, and what status you're in, whether it's deferment, forbearance, and make sure that you're not going into default. Now, before you even go into school, it's really important to know what your budget is. I put this website down at the bottom. Make sure you write it down or copy and paste it into your browser one day so that you can go on here. There's a list of monthly expenses chart that you can use so that you can see the formula on how to budget your money. It shows you what expenses you have minus what you might borrow, and it allows you to see how much you can spend. If you're borrowing too much, there's no need to borrow that much loans unless you actually need it. So don't over borrow, and of course don't overspend to where you need to borrow. So as students, it's really important to know our monthly expenses and our monthly budget so that we can maintain a good budget. Okay, paying your loan. There's a lot of different repay options, and I'll go over all the repay options. Make sure that you are aware of who your financial aid counselor is, of course. Most times before you get out of school, they do something what is called exit loan counseling, just like they have the entrance counseling. They'll prepare, your school's financial aid department will prepare you for paying back your loans with exit counseling. You have many options to repay your loans back. You can, like I said, pay back your interest while you're in school so that interest doesn't accumulate. But if it doesn't, then you can contact your server and they can set you up with a payment plan that fits your budget. For example, here's a repayment schedule. If your loan was $10,000 and your monthly payment could be $115, keep in mind there's interest on there. So with the interest added on, you're looking at $13,809.64. Now I know that looks like a lot, but remember you're paying for your degree. Most people that are coming out of school are, of course, going to graduate school or getting their PhD to get an increase in their income. So don't look at these loans and these numbers as discouragement. Once you're done with the degree and you're done with your PhD, you should be seeing double in your income to where you actually can pay back your loans. Also, you can get into programs that are offered, and I'll be speaking about those a little bit later, that are repayment plans or loan forgiveness plans that can help you with your loan payments. Most payment terms are at least 10 years. Of course, if you're paying back your interest, they will not accumulate more than what you borrowed. Here are some of the options of your repayment plans that you have through the Department of Education and some of your loan lenders. Now, private loan lenders may have other options of repayment plans. So make sure that you inquire with whoever your servicer are. You have the graduated repayment plan, extended repayment plan, the income-based repayment plan, which is, I say, the best, income-sensitive repayment plan, and the income contingent repayment plan. Now, the graduate repayment plan, it starts off low, but keep in mind that it may change and increase every 2 years. So you gotta make sure that if you can't maintain this type of loan, then you always have the option to contact your servicer and change your repayment plan. These payment plans you're not locked into, so don't feel like you're stuck into a repayment plan. There are options that you can change within the 10 years. However, it may change your monthly payment, can increase. The extended payment plan, you're eligible to receive loans after, these are only loans that you've received after 1998. This repayment plan can be up to 25 years. This is more than the other plans, which are just at a 10-year basis. You can pay as low as $50 per month, which is a difference in the other payment plans as well. Keep in mind that the interest is occurring for those 25 years on that loan though. So a $30,000 loan at $208.22 can end up having an interest tacked on it for another $32,000, which would equal up to the $62,466.48 that you see on there. So you might be, the longer that you choose plan, the more interest you have and the more that you're paying. So you can come out paying double than what you've borrowed. So it's really important that you choose the best repayment plan that will get the loan paid off as soon as possible, or pay as much interest as you can, even though your monthly payment might be a certain number. The income-based repayment plan, I said that this one is the most efficient because it goes with how much you're making by year. This is a plan that they will look at your taxes, look at your paycheck stub, and see how much you're making. So if you're a low income individual, then they base your monthly payment off of what you can actually pay. Yes, remember that the interest is being built on that. However, after 10 years, you do have the option of loan forgiveness, or see if you qualify for loan cancellation based off your income, if it's still a reasonably low or need-based income that's eligible for cancellation or forgiveness. Income sensitive is kind of like the income-based repayment plan. However, you have to remember, for these repayment plans, only certain type of loans are eligible for this application. If you're a private loan, you may not be eligible for this type of loan repayment option. This option is only for people that have applied for FFELP loans, so direct loans or Perkins loans or any private loans. You won't be eligible for the income sensitive repayment plan. This one also allows you to pay up to for a term for 10 years, but remember that interest is occurring each year for this loan as well. This one, it's based off your income, so each year you have to reapply like the income base, and they're going to ask you for your tax information, your paycheck stub, to see if there's been any increase on your income. And then they'll base that, your income, your repayment off your income each year. Consolidation is really important, that you maintain all of your loans and you know who your service lender is. Consolidation is the best way to keep track of all your loans. Some loans aren't eligible for consolidation, such as private loans. There's pros and cons for consolidating. So make sure that you go on the studentaid.ed.gov repay. There's a list of eligibility for consolidation loans. Also, that page shows you pros and cons for consolidating your loans. Sometimes when you consolidate your loan, your interest rate can go up. So make sure that you keep that in mind, because you're putting all your loans in one. So it can get up to 8.25% on your interest rate, which kind of hurts you if you're paying longer for your loans. But if you're paying your interest while you're in school, then it won't hurt you. This slide just shows you the different types of repayment plans and what they're based off of. Of course, consolidation, they will do a credit check on you. So make sure that you keep in mind while you're in school, maintaining your grades, maintaining an income. You also maintain your credit score, because this does affect your repayment and your options and your eligibility for consolidation. Now, I know that a lot of people get in different circumstances. Sometimes you'll have a child while you're in school. Sometimes you'll lose a job. You can have medical conditions that require you to pay, for medical bills and different type of hardships. Make sure that you keep in touch with your servicer, and also your financial aid counselor, and find out what your options are. You have economic hardship deferments. Those are limited 3-year limit. So you can be in deferment for 3 years if you're facing an economic hardship, one of those that I just named. Of course, you would have to make sure that you apply and send in supporting documentation to your lender to see if you're eligible for that. Also, if you're out of school for a while and you go back into repayment and then you get back in school, you have what's called an in-school deferment. So while you're in school, your loans are accumulating interest. However, they're not in repayment, so you can have an in-school deferment. If you are unable to pay your loans at all and you're dealing with situations that are keeping you from being able to financially pay your loans, there's what's called a forbearance, and that's up to 5 years that you can have pay a grace period on your repayment of your loans. So forbearance and deferment are options for you so that you don't feel like you're stuck on these repayment plans. So keep in mind that even if you do borrow, if things happen, if circumstances happen on the way, you do have the options to do deferment or forbearances or in-school deferment if you plan on going back to school. But keep in mind, interest does accumulate on these even if you are in deferment or forbearance. Now, as far as deferment, not everybody will be available to get a deferment. However, if you contact your servicer, fill out the application, you can see if you meet the terms and conditions for the deferment that you're applying for. If you're in school, the school that you're going to will automatically contact your servicer, so you don't actually have to apply for in-school deferment. However, if you're dealing with the economic hardship, then make sure that you do contact your servicer and see what your options are for deferment. During this period, of course, graduate students don't get subsidized loans, but if you are getting an unsubsidized loan, you must pay interest, or the interest will occur during the deferment. The forbearance period. This is very very beneficial for people who go through different tragic situations, because it's a longer term that you will not have to do your regular loan payment. However, it's really hard to qualify for the forbearance. So make sure that if you do apply, that you submit all information that's needed in timely fashion, because sometimes when you're filling out these applications for forbearance, deference, or default, it'll take a while and your interest will still occur on your loan while they're doing the paperwork. So make sure that any information that's needed, you turn it in correctly to your servicer so that you can see if you qualify for the forbearance. If you've been in default, you may be in jeopardy of not being able to do a forbearance loan option. Here are some of the reasons that I mentioned for forbearance and also for deferment. Of course, like I said, in school, military or reserves can also apply for forbearance or deferment if you're deployed. If you're going to the AmeriCorps, that's always a good option for free financial aid as well as forbearance. If you have any type of burdens, anything that happens, such as you lose your job, or you have an unexpected tragic loss, make sure that you speak with your financial aid counselor as well as your lender to see what options you have. Don't feel discouraged because you've borrowed this money, because of course it's for a good cause. It's for you to better your education, and there are options for you. In addition to the repayment options, we so graciously thank Obama for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Plan. A lot of us in ABPsi, we will be part of nonprofits or servicing the community, and this qualifies you for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or if you work for the state, the Department of Education or your lender, you can see if you qualify for the Loan Forgiveness Public Service Program. What this is if you pay 120 qualifying payments, that means whatever monthly plan you were put on, if you pay 120 of those payments, which is up to 10 years of not missing a payment, then the rest of your loans can be forgiven. This works very, very well for graduate students and students that are doing their PhD, because if you accumulate up to the 138.5, you're coming out paying maybe a little bit more than 75% of that, and then the rest will be forgiven. So it's really beneficial. And that includes the interest as well. Other loan forgiveness programs is if you volunteer. Of course, they have the military, the National Guard. If you're teaching, you can become part of the loan forgiveness program. Now, it doesn't forgive all of your loans, but it will pay at least up to $17,000 of your loans. And keep in mind, these programs do change by year, so you can always go to www.fina.org loans forgiveness and see the updated information and see which one that you do qualify for. If you are teaching and part of a public service, I would recommend you take the loan forgiveness program that through the public service option. I talked about default a little bit. Let me go into detail about default. Default is when you are when you fail to repay back your loans, or you've been out of school 6 months and you have not contacted your loan provider or made any application to pay back your student loans. This is not good. Make sure that you do not go into default, because this can affect your credit and affect you, your place of employment as well, or applying for a job. Your master promissory notes allow you to be aware of default and your terms and conditions of your loan. So make sure that you're aware of your terms and conditions on your master promissory note so that you will not fall into default. Sometimes students fall into default and they don't know until they do a credit check. So make sure that you stay on the National Student Loan Data System and on your loan lender's website so that you know what status your loans are in. Here are some of the consequences that I was talking about. Of course, that can be reported to the credit bureaus. That can affect your getting a house or getting a car or even getting a job. So remember, you're being responsible while you're in school with your grades and maintaining a budget, and also maintaining loans that you might have borrowed for your education. Now, helpful tips to avoid loans. As I was saying, you can keep in touch with your servicer. It's really important that you check your mail. I know a lot of people get junk mail and they throw away mail or just think, okay, I'll take care of it later. Some of those, that mail from your lender might be telling you if you drop below 6 hours is full-time for a graduate student at most institutions and for most loan borrowers. If you drop below 6 hours and you go half-time, that means that your loans will start to go into repayment. So it's really important that you are aware of your enrollment status will affect you being in jeopardy of going into default as well. You need to come up with a financial plan so that you can avoid being in default. So a little bit of saving on the side, or a little bit of paying that interest plus a savings on the side. That's why it's really important to have assistantships or work while you're in school as a graduate student, preferably in your field, so that you can maintain savings, so that when you do get out of school, that you can be on a repayment plan that is reasonable for you, so that you do not fall into default. Make sure that you keep all the copies of your documentation. It's really smart that if you're a paperless individual, what you can do is scan all your documents that come in the mail and put them on a jump drive, put them in a file on your computer and then shred the copies, but make sure that you keep all your documentation, because if you do fall below 6 hours, or if your lender is sending you information that can benefit you or that you need to know, you'll have it on file for later reference. As graduate students, it's really important that we maintain our responsibilities. To keep up with my credit, I did join Credit Karma. It is very beneficial. It's a free website that you can go and follow your credit score. It'll alert you if you have any credit changes. It also helps you budget your money and see what different expenses you've taken out for the month as far as your credit. I do not recommend that you get credit cards to pay for your school. However, if you do, make sure that you maintain those, because they have interest that accumulate on those as well. However, if you use the FAFSA application and loans from Direct Loans in the Department of Education, again, those will have lower interest rates. To maintain your credit, it's really important that if you do get a credit card, that you at least pay the minimum payment every month. Make sure that you're checking your mail and you're keeping up with any type of interest that's accumulating. Make sure that you put your information in a safe place as far as your personal information, your social security number, your passwords, so that you don't become a victim of identity theft, because that can also affect your funding for school if you're trying to borrow or if you need to consolidate and you would hate to be in the midst of a identity theft and trying to get funding for school. So it's really important that you, it's really, as a student, a responsibility for you to maintain safety with your information so that it doesn't put you in jeopardy of not being able to get funding. There's something called a hawk alert that you can contact the 3 credit bureaus. You have Experian, I forgot the other 2, TransUnion, and I forgot the other credit bureau. I'm so sorry. You can contact the credit bureaus and make sure you do a hawk alert on your account. What that will do is, if someone is trying to attempt to use your credit or your social security number, they will contact you first. It's called a hawk alert. So that can protect you as well from any type of credit issues. Know your monthly payment. Remember, you have a 6 months grace period from the time that you graduate, and a 6 months grace period from the time that you drop below half-time before you have to start paying your loans back. Also discuss with your financial aid counselor, mentors, college advisors, your colleagues, and see what other ways other than loans that you can receive funding for your school. There's a lot of options out there for fellowships, grants, scholarships, and assistantships through your institution. I went ahead and I am using this biblical scripture. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is a slave of the lender. If you do have to borrow, don't become a slave to your lender. Pay your loans back as soon as possible. If you borrow from someone and your family, pay that loan back as soon as possible. If you borrow from your bank institution, pay your loans back as soon as possible. It's important that you already have the stress of your school and maintaining a good GPA. You don't need to make it harder on yourself by having interest accumulate or the burden of borrowing from another person and still having to pay them back and also maintain bills and a budget and savings. That concludes the managing your financial obligations for school funding. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Yes, thank you so much, Kimberly. This was an awesome presentation and had so much very useful and very valuable information. So one question that did come up is, so what if I go into default? How do I get out?
I couldn't hear you. Say it again.
Sorry about that. What if I go into default? How do I get out?
If you go into default, how do you get out? First, you would, of course, have to contact your lender, and they're going to give you options of getting out of default. There's different ways that you can apply. Now, they may make you pay a minimum amount to get out of default. Once you're out of default, then you'll be able to start borrowing again, but your lender will let you know your different options of getting default. Normally, you'll have to pay a percentage or provide documentation to show them any type of hardship or circumstances that placed you into that default. That's why it's important to never go or try your hardest not to go into default, because once you're in, you're going to have to get out.
Great. Something else that came up is you talked about the importance of saving money. So any tips on how to best do this while in graduate school, or like any tips about how to stretch your stipends?
Oh, good question. Good question. Yes. Okay. There's a lot of different being in PhD, and I have 2 masters and an undergrad. So I've gone through a lot of school and had to do a lot of different things. I know a lot of graduate students know about ramen noodles. You have to remember there are sacrifices that you're going to have to take while you're in school. You're doing these kind of things because the future is brighter than your current circumstance. There's things like maybe not going out and partying that weekend and reading a book and not spending. There's things like carpooling that you'll have to take that option. Roommating maybe with someone if you have that option. Instead of buying coffee, making coffee at home. You know, Starbucks can come out to $7, $6 a cup. I know, I love Starbucks, y'all. But when you're maintaining a budget and you're trying to stretch your money, especially your stipend. Now, remember, stipends go directly to your tuition. But if you're getting an assistantship or a type of a work study, that's going to go into your pocket. So you have to remember to maintain a budget. So to cut off some expenses and think about the long term of it all and how much money you're going to make when you graduate, that helps you save your money. Maybe cooking more instead of going out as much. We have to remember some of our waitresses and waiters, they're in doctoral school. You know, they're working, but in the long run, you know, they might be working for $5, and that's why tips are important. They might be working for $5, but in the long run, they're going to be the doctors getting, you know, 100 and something a year. So you have to take sacrifices while you're in school so that you can get the big payoff. Also, instead of buying books, you might want to look on renting a book, or they have Kindles, or borrowing a book. Don't plagiarize, of course, copyright, but there's options that you can pinch your penny.
Great suggestions. I should probably take a few of those. So I know we're a little bit short on time, so just one more. You talked a little bit about assistantships, and can you really just talk a little bit about what they are and how they may be different from other types of funding?
Yeah, assistantships are actually jobs that you work on campus. Graduate assistantships give you the option to work and apply what you're learning in your field. For instance, if you are in a counseling program, you're able to sometimes get a caseload. It depends on your school, your institution. They'll give you that. You can get a caseload. They'll set you up with the counseling center on school, and you can be the assistant to the counselor in the health center, and you'll actually get paid up to an amount. It might be $3,000 a month that you'll be able to get paid in your pocket and use that towards school. That's what's called an assistantship. Or sometimes they'll have you work in the department as an administrator assistant. Or sometimes you can be a teacher's assistant, and you'll learn how to grade papers, or you'll be the teacher's aide. And those actually are really beneficial because it's applied learning. You learn in the classroom, but assistantships actually help you apply what you've learned, and you get paid for it.
All right, thank you so much. So we are done for tonight. Any last words of wisdom or anything before we call it a night?
Yes, thank you for attending, watching. Make sure you take heed of everything, the information that was given. Don't get discouraged because there's so many options. Like I said, there's so many ways to repay. So don't boggle down into if you have to borrow. But at the same time, before you start borrowing any type of loans, look at various websites. There's so many options for scholarships. Join professional organizations and associations in your field so that you can network and get grants and fellowships and assistantships. There's numerous of graduate students that have gone to school for free. And that's because they did their due diligence and got out there and networked and got free money before you have to start tapping into more borrowing.
All right, thank you so much. So this concludes part 1 of our webinar series. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for everything tonight. Our next installment will be in February 2017, and we'll be sending more information about that in the coming weeks. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.